Cappuccino cities are cities that have an advanced service sector economy where you have high-wage workers and low-wage workers congregating and being a large part of the economy. In these cities, you tend to get the downtowns developing and expanding. With that, you typically get the gentrification of neighborhoods that are just on the periphery of the downtown. And in the US, this tends to be minority communities. Typically, gentrification occurs in low-income communities that are in prime locations within the city. So you see in Washington, D.C., most of the neighborhoods that are gentrifying are in close proximity to the central business district. These are the areas that the city is putting particular investments in, such as the bike lanes, which are attracting young white millennials to these formerly low-income neighborhoods. But what's interesting about Washington, D.C. is it has very good protections for low-income residents, and there is a certain amount of housing stock that's subsidized that helps people stay. And so people aren't necessarily being displaced in areas that are gentrifying in Washington, D.C., but what does happen is there tends to be a political and a cultural displacement process where you sort of lose political power because the newcomers who are moving to your neighborhood take over political institutions. When the institutions are taken over, the new amenities that come into the gentrified areas are not necessarily the amenities that fit with the tastes and preferences of the long-term residents. Shaw U Street symbolizes, or once symbolized, the iconic ghetto. It was an area in the 60s up into the late 80s that had high rates of crime, poverty, and public housing, and it was majority African American. In the 90s and 2000s, it has gone through a tremendous economic redevelopment. So it has gone from the dark ghetto to the gilded ghetto. And in the gilded ghetto, property values for townhomes go for $1 million plus. Rents can be as high as $5,000 a month for one bedrooms. So it symbolizes the gentrification process that's not just happening in Washington, D.C., but it is happening into many African American inner city communities around the country. When you're a newcomer and you're coming into a historic community, get to know the history of that neighborhood. But don't just do that, get to know your neighbors. I think the thing to make mixed income, mixed race communities work in America, we have to stimulate and grease the wheels of social integration. That we need to be communicating across race and class. And what I've seen in this community is that although it looks very diverse, there is micro level segregation. The newcomers and the long-term residents don't talk to one another. So to really make these communities work, we need to have individuals that are willing to talk with people that are of different races, different incomes, different backgrounds of themselves. This book is all about the gentrification of African American neighborhoods and how we try to do redevelopment in a way that's equitable and inclusive, in a way that just doesn't displace people but keeps people in place so that the redevelopment increases their life chances.